Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. There has been a second death in a month at the Spectrum Temporary Shelter operated by Hope Mission in Edmonton. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
Last month, a man's body was found at the Spectrum Center in Edmonton. The former site of a racetrack and casino has been used as a 24/7 emergency shelter. The body was found in a fenced-off utility room and may have been there for weeks before being found. This week, there was another death at the shelter, operated by Hope Mission, who have provided food and housing for those who need it since the Great Depression in 1929. Lauren Reed is the community liaison for Hope Mission.
This is just very tragic. Our hearts really go out to the family of this person who passed away this week, as well as to our staff. They care so much and love the people that we work with, and it's always really heartbreaking for them.
Reed says that rising prices and inflation have brought more people to their services.
It's rough out there right now, and we are doing everything that we can to support people in really difficult and vulnerable situations, and we're just really sad that this happened.
Judith Gale is the leader of the Bear Clan Patrol Edmonton Beaver Hills House. The Bear Clan are on the streets, feeding and providing resources to the less fortunate.
The last gentleman that met his demise in that public space that was purportedly there to protect him, he definitely met his demise there. He was 36 years old, and he was a loved member of his family, his community. And yeah, it's very, very sad.
She says she will lobby to have more information released when someone dies at a shelter.
We the public get to find out the W5s of a person's demise, the who, the what, the where, the when, and the how. That, especially if it's concerning public dollars in a public space, the public needs to know where that agency has failed our brothers and sisters.
Lauren Reed says Hope Mission is reviewing what happened to help prevent future deaths. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
The province of Alberta has announced record-breaking numbers of deaths among youth in care. 34 children, youth, or young adults receiving services have died between April and November 2021. Those numbers were released by Children's Services this week. Child advocate Lynn Marshallsay is part of the group Preserving Families. She says this number is the highest it's been since becoming an advocate, and most are Indigenous.
So that's quite a few in 7 months. 34, that's too many. 23 out of the 34 are confirmed to be Indigenous children and youth. And currently in the Alberta Child and Family Services system, 71% of the kids in care are Indigenous. So that's alarming in itself.
British Columbia is still trying to deal with the damage that heavy rainstorms caused in the province earlier this month. Now, parts of the Trans-Canada Highway are still closed and many people still can't go home. And now BC is experiencing another wave of heavy rains. APTN's Tina House has this update.
Thank you. We're here in Abbotsford, BC, where, as you can see, it's raining heavy once again. In fact, we're experiencing another atmospheric river. On Saturday, there's another atmospheric river that's supposed to hit this area as well. Behind me, you can see One Pond exit, which just days ago was completely underwater. In some cases, the water was high as 5 feet, and that was completely inaccessible until now. Water has receded, and as you can see to my right, they're slowly trying to open up Highway 1 between Abbotsford and Hope, which was completely closed down for the last week and a half. In fact, many of the highways, there's an essential only travel advisory for all highways around the Lower Mainland. It's been very challenging for the farmers, especially here on the Suez Prairie, the last week and a half. They're trying to get clean drinking water to their livestock that are still there. The water that is surrounding many of the properties still is considered toxic because many animals have perished, and there's also manure pits that have also mixed into that water. So, in fact, the Sumas Prairie right now has a do not use water advisory for those people. It's been extremely challenging here for many people as well, worried and considering the rain that's coming right now. The Abbotsford City Mayor just announced yesterday that they've completed 90% of the repair work on the Sumas River Dike. So we're hoping that holds, and we'll be continuing to bring you coverage from the flood zone here in Abbotsford. Back to you in studio.
All right, thanks for that, Tina. Now, as British Columbia deals with the fallout from last week's deadly weather, some people are calling for an alert system to warn of future weather events. Some communities say they were not alerted about the flooding and mudslides, and that left them ill-prepared for the devastation.
We definitely need an alert system to make people more aware and be better prepared before a storm comes of that magnitude. And how we measure that and get that information out is so critical moving forward. Like you say, some of the roads, some of the slides, and the amount of damage that's been done in communities, I think, is really reflective on getting that warning out sooner than later.
Now, Schnitzler says all First Nations communities and all levels of government should be involved in order to prevent any gaps in a new alert system. Now, the municipality of Victoria County in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, is assessing the damage after torrential rain led to flooding and road washouts there. The warden for the area says it could have been much worse if people had not heeded the warnings to stay home.
Things are quite stable right now. We did initiate the state of emergency about 8 o'clock Monday evening, and we rescinded it yesterday at noontime. And primarily that was to encourage people to shelter at home and make sure that they stayed off the roads. I had a chance to travel down to one of the most affected areas today, and certainly traffic was very light and crews were working, so clearly people are certainly following the advice that we provided.
More rainfall is in the forecast for this weekend there as well. Crews are doing what they can to prepare and hopefully prevent more flooding. The Assembly of First Nations released more information Thursday on its upcoming trip to the Vatican next month. This includes the names of the 13 representatives that will make up the delegation that will travel to Rome on December 14th. The trip includes a meeting with Pope Francis on December the 20th. Representatives from across the country will make up the delegation. This includes Dene National Chief Norman Yekelea, former AFN National Chief Phil Fontaine, and former TRC co-chair Wilton Littlechild. Fontaine says an apology from the Pope to residential school survivors is unlikely on this trip. He says such an apology is more likely to happen when the Pope visits Canada. The date of that papal visit has yet to be determined.
It would be a terrible waste of time if the Pope was to commit, as he has, to coming to Canada and not issue an apology when he's here. I think it makes good sense to have him, to have the apology when he's here during his papal tour to Canada.
All right, we need to take a short break, but still to come, we'll bring you details of a new report that says more than 1 million children were living in poverty in 2019. Welcome back. It could be months before the Quebec Coroner's Bureau releases its report on Rcmp Putagousk. The 61-year-old Inuk woman was found dead at a Montreal construction site almost 2 weeks ago. Her death raises questions about how the city's homeless will make it through the winter without emergency support. Advocates insist there's a way, but not without political will. Lindsay Richardson explains.
She was an Inuk. She had family, she had friends. She lived here when she wanted to. She was like all of us. We loved her. Her family loved her. She will be missed. Now you have like 4 condominiums coming up and we have somebody perish.
It's been 2 weeks since Rcmp Pugatu's body was discovered at a downtown Montreal construction site. Work there is continuing. But life for Lisa P's loved ones is on pause.
Puis c'était dur. Elle était malade, puis elle a dur en tabarouette. Mais elle a vécu. On doit vivre de même. Elle m'a appris comment vivre, puis j'ai vécu avec elle. Je l'aime beaucoup, ma belle-sœur.
Police say Elisa P's death wasn't criminal.
No more dying around here.
Advocates say it's inexcusable.
People should be outraged that in 1 year, we've had 2 people now who have passed on.
In January, on the other side of town, Rafael Naba Andre was found dead in a porta potty around the corner from the closed shelter he normally frequented. Without a funding boost, this community-run warming tent named in his honor is now in danger of closing, leaving the homeless in the lurch as temperatures start to drop.
You know, why is it always our responsibility? Why does the city and the province and the feds, come together and say, this is our solution? It's a city of reconciliation, but we have 2 Indigenous people that are very vulnerable and passed away.
Funding questions aside, another came up repeatedly at Monday's memorial. Where's the mayor?
I understand the mayor of Montreal was invited to attend the ceremony today, and she didn't show. I think the city has to wake up and maybe look at this as an opportunity to provide example to other cities across the country. Cold shouldn't be killing our people.
Merci François de ces échanges francs, je dirais animés, avec beaucoup de rire.
The mayor and the Quebec premier were in a joint press conference at the time. While neither leader addressed the ongoing vigil, a spokesperson for the mayor's office told APTN News they never received an invitation, adding, quote, "Every death under these circumstances is one death too many." The city says they're doubling their funding for the homeless over the next 4 years and are working on social housing. But time's ticking.
Because it is cold now, and if people don't have a warm place to stay tonight, someone else is going to die.
It's a message repeated.
How many times do Indigenous people have to remind you, we are people, we are human. And Intituk, Inuk means person, Inuit means people. It's in our language, it's in our lives. We are no different between each other.
And repeated.
And please stand up for us too.
God bless.
God bless you.
They say they'll continue pushing while waiting for the coroner's report, which should say what officially caused Elisa P's death, and while the city works with the province to mobilize emergency resources. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
1.3 million Canadian children were living in poverty in 2019, according to a new report from Campaign 2000. The top 3 worst areas from that report are in Manitoba, with more than half of First Nations children living in poverty. Michelle Kurlenzig has more.
Canada is 54 years away from ending child poverty, according to projections from a Campaign 2000 report. The report, conducted by a coalition of 120 organizations, looked at federal ridings across Canada. Churchill-Coatinuck-Aski in northern Manitoba ranked the highest, with 64% of children living in poverty. The feds vowed to cut the child poverty rate in half by 2030.
If you're a baby born today, is going to be 9 years old in 2030 and might be in the group for whom child poverty has not been reduced. So he, she, or they could grow up and be 18 years old before child poverty is eliminated on that schedule.
In the highest ranked areas, 3 are in Manitoba, with roughly 37,000 kids combined. Campaign 2000 started after the Canadian Parliament vowed in 1989 to end child poverty across Canada by the year 2000. That hasn't happened, and Director of Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says it's not because of a lack of resources or money.
The most important thing in this recipe for reducing child poverty is the political will to do it.
A local Manitoba report was released during the pandemic, which furthers the dire situation for Manitoba's youth. The Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth says the pandemic has caused absenteeism and high rates of mental health issues for youth.
We saw things like increased rates of solitary confinement happening in custody facilities. We saw things like restrictions on family visitation for young people who are in care of child welfare. And so really, you know, kind of across the board, there were impacts on children and youth with respect to those measures that had to be brought in as a result of the pandemic and the safety protocols.
When it comes to changes in Canada for children in poverty, Robinson says things like childcare rates and helping parents stay working are significant ways to tackle the issue.
Parents of children living in poverty get most of their money from working, and if we can allow more people to work or work longer hours, that's going to make a difference.
According to the report, child poverty rates decreased by 0.5%, down from 2017. Michelle Karlenzig, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
All right, we need to step aside for one final break, but stick around. We'll tell you about a major archaeological discovery at a heritage park in Saskatoon. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. This photo is of the Dignity statue located just outside of Chamberlain, South Dakota. It stands 50 feet tall, is made of stainless steel, and is to honor Indigenous women. Thanks to Ethel Straker for the submission. Send your photos to share@aptn.ca for your chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Beginning over in the east, 9 degrees in Charlottetown and +4 in Fredericton. 2 degrees in Nain and -4 in the Grand River. Snow and -9 in Val-d'Or and 0 degrees in Saguenay. 6 and snow in Peterborough and +7 and snow in Toronto. -13 and snow in Timmins and -13 in Big Trout Lake. Snow and -13 in Churchill and -6 and snowing in Norway House. -3 and a mix of sun and cloud in Winnipeg and -4 and snow in Barons River. +7 and sunshine in Regina and +5 in Saskatoon. Snowing and -7 in Stony Rapids and +2 and sun in La Ronge. Over in the west, 0 degrees and sunshine in Peace River and snow and -3 in Fort Chipewyan. +9 and sunshine in Calgary and 5 degrees in Edmonton. 7 and a mix of sun and cloud in Quesnel and snow and +2 in Bella Coola. Snowing and -5 in Dease Lake and -11 in Fort Nelson. Snow and -21 in Old Crow and -34 in Dawson. -22 in snow in Wrigley and -7 in Trout Lake. -21 in snow in Inuvik and -20 in Tuktoyaktuk. -22 in Baker Lake and -20 in Chesterfield. Historic and meaningful. That's how a major archaeological discovery at Wanuskewin Heritage Park near Saskatoon is being described. APTN's Leanne Sanders reports.
If not for Wanuskewin's buffalo herd, introduced back to the park 2 years ago, a rare type of petroglyph may have stayed hidden. The herd's activity in the paddock last summer exposed the rocks just 800 meters from the front doors of the visitor center. Park founder Ernie Walker says it's an incredible find.
It's what we refer to as a rib stone. The engravings on this rock mimic or are a metaphor for bison. They're like looking at the ribs of a bison. And if you look down the central axis where you would have expected the vertebra to be, there's a little spirit figure.
In all, 4 stones and the rock used to carve the rib stone were found nearby. The discovery has deeper meaning for a member of Wanuskewin's Elder Council, Cy Standing.
This is very significant because when the bison came back and then they uncovered the rock, and that's very significant and very sacred for us. And that tells us, that gives us a sign that there's good things to come in the future.
The discovery of the stones helps Wanuskewin live up to its name, which comes from a word for 4 stones. The park also hopes the find will help achieve the goal of becoming a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
It's Thursday, and that means Nation to Nation will be coming up following the newscast. Here's host producer Brett Forrester with a look ahead.
Thanks, Daryl. Tonight we'll be dissecting the Rcmp raid in British Columbia. A week ago, dozens were arrested at a camp in Wet'suwet'en Territory. Jeffrey Monahan is a criminology professor from Carleton University and claims the Rcmp no longer respond to democratic control. As well, Big Ma lawyer Pam Palmater will give her 2 cents on the recent throne speech. Palmater says there's not enough being done to stop women from being murdered or going missing. And Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami President Natan Obed drops by our studio. He'll outline what Ottawa needs to do for Inuit. That's coming up in a matter of minutes.
Tomorrow on Investigates, Christopher Reed takes a look at a nuclear revival. In the wake of COP26, many are looking for zero-carbon energy sources, and nuclear power is zero carbon. But where would all the nuclear waste be sent? Here's a preview.
Canada got into the nuclear industry on the ground floor. Much of the uranium used to develop the first nuclear bombs for the top-secret Manhattan Project was mined in Canada by Saulteaux Dene people in Deline Northwest Territories. And Chalk River, Canada's first nuclear reactor facility, was involved in producing plutonium for the Allied weapons program. Today, Canada no longer supplies uranium or plutonium for nuclear weaponry and has signed the United Nations Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. But Canada's involvement in nuclear energy continues. At the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, we saw a growing push for the expansion of nuclear power because it's a carbon-free energy source. Currently, about 15% of all Canadian electricity is produced by 6 nuclear power plants, 5 in Ontario and 1 in New Brunswick. And the nuclear reactors at those plants produce nuclear waste, waste that doesn't have a permanent home. And that's why Canada's nuclear energy industry is looking for partners.
You can watch the full episode tomorrow night right after the news. All right, that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of APTN National News. For news anytime, visit our website at aptnnews.ca. Stick around. Nation to Nation starts right now. I'm Daryl Stranger. Have a great night.